how high could the markets go? How high could the stock market go? How high could Bitcoin go before they begin crashing? I think that Bitcoin could rally, and I know some people think this sounds stupid because it's such a broad prediction, but it's where I'm at currently, and I'm honestly giving you what I see. If I could give you a more precise guess, I would do so. I think that we're going to see Bitcoin climb to anywhere between 40 to 100,000 as being a fairly realistic place for us to peak out in the coming, let's say, 10 months or less. And part of that reason is because of the bullish narrative and the bullish hype on the ETFs. The ETFs, I think, have a chance of getting approved. I think that they have the greatest chance of getting approved. Not that they necessarily will. There's still a chance they will not. But I think they have the greatest chance of getting approved that has ever happened in the past 10 years. You know, the Winklevi twins, and I feel sorry for these guys, put in their application to the SEC for their ETF, their Bitcoin ETF, 10 years ago. It has been 10 years since they've been disapproved. And unfortunately, in the way the world works, the powers that be didn't want them to be first. Now we have BlackRock and I think Citadel and Charles Schwab and all these guys jumping on board, making their own exchanges, and most importantly, applying for ETFs. And a whole slew of ETFs have all jumped on board with similar parameters. And so I think that, like many of you probably have guessed, if BlackRock is jumping on board, as evil as a company as they are, they don't tend to mess around with money, and they also carry a lot of manipulation and a lot of weight in terms of money. And so they can make things happen. And I would say that they can even probably sway regulators because of their size. They are a behemoth, and rightly or wrongly, mostly wrongly, they can do this. So the Gemini twins should be first, absolutely. But the world is not a fair place, unfortunately, and it looks like it's possible that the likes of BlackRock may be first when it comes to getting an ETF approved. And I think that there's going to be a tremendous amount of FOMO, but also a tremendous amount of price moving up because of ETFs having to buy Bitcoin. They have to acquire the asset to be able to offer it on an ETF. Remember, this is not a futures options trading ETF. This is an actual spot ETF. Therefore, they need the asset to be able to offer it. And so there could be, imagine if 5 or 10 ETFs all get approved back to back suddenly, with BlackRock being first. Well, that could be an enormous amount of upward pressure on the price. And I think that that probably is the narrative that could be the reason we see the price surge in the next, let's call it 10 months, up to perhaps $100,000. Things could get wild. We don't know. But that is what I see in the interim. And so that is my Bitcoin prediction. And then let's also talk about the stock market. So right now we have the stock market rallying. We have the S&P 500 approaching 4,500 points, where it's just shy of its all-time high. And it looks like there's a very good chance that we're going to see either a double top on the S&P 500, or perhaps even it breaks into new all-time highs again during the next many months, less than a year, more than a few months. It's going to break possibly the all-time highs. So I could see that as my guess, as the outcome here is either a double top with the all-time high, or probably breaking beyond that, because it's not what the market expects. The market expects recession, much as I did 6 months ago. But I'm here to, humble myself, to be wrong if it's appropriate, and then to re-navigate, to reorient myself, and to re-look at the information and go, okay, what is really happening here? And so the market likes to make the maximum number of participants wrong. And what better way to do it than to rally to new all-time highs on the face of the highest inflation that the country and the world has seen for a very long time? It doesn't make sense. And that's exactly how the market makes the most number of participants wrong, is because it's rallying when it doesn't make sense. But it can only happen for so long. And that's the key. The market can remain irrational longer than a person can remain solvent. You may have heard that. And I think that this is a good example of that. People, perhaps like Capo of Twitter fame, betting that Bitcoin's going to crash to new lows, much as I was 6 months ago as well, right? And I think that it still could be coming, but it's not on the timeline that we were expecting. And timing is everything. Because if you're at $20,000 Bitcoin and then you think it's going to go down to $12,000, but instead it goes to $40,000, that's a pretty big wrong calculation to make. And so it's important to get the timing right, even if it goes to 50,000, 60,000, and then goes to 12,000. Just what if, right? What if that happens? So sure, you were right. It went to 12,000. Maybe Capo is eventually right. I think there's a fair chance eventually he could be. But how wrong are you in the meantime? And how big of a deal is that? And it's becoming a bigger and bigger deal the higher and higher the price rallies. And I think that that's, again, the market shaking everyone out. BlackRock wants to buy up as much Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very competitive market. So those are my predictions for Bitcoin in the stock market within the next 10 months. Again, that could be in the next 1 month, that could be in the next 10 months. Somewhere in that time frame, I expect to see Bitcoin, or let's say I wouldn't be surprised to say that Bitcoin hits $40,000 up to $100,000. And likewise for the stock market, for the S&P 500, I could see us either double topping with the all-time high, or I could see us making new all-time highs. But I believe it's going to be a parabolic rise, and it's going to also have a parabolic crash. And that will be where we enter into that bear phase, the multi-year drawdown, the most painful bear market that both crypto and the stock market have felt for a very, very long time. Okay, guys, so those are my broad overview predictions. Now let's jump into these metrics, and especially this unemployment metric that I'm adding to the mix. And I'll just review and show you where we're at now and how it has lined up perfectly. Like the Fed rate has climbed. It's beginning to plateau just as expected, right? Maybe the Fed does another rate increase or two, but it looks like it's slowing down, and it looks like we're basically going to go flat for a while. This lines up exactly with what I've been showing you guys on this particular thing. In that regard, my long-term projection has not changed, and the pattern has not changed from 6 months ago when I first made the video. So here we go, guys. Let's dive into it. I hope you enjoy.